So Charles, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Okay, I think I'm on.
Okay.
Okay, let me see here. Oh, do you see that?
I see that.
Good. All right. So, what is the Decoder Pro? What is JMRI? Let me just go to the next page. And I have to hit new share. Oh boy. Okay. JMRI stands for Java Model Railroad Interface. I spoke to this. I spoke about JMRI the last time I did a clinic here, and we were talking about operations. But today I'm going to talk about what Decoder Pro is. Decoder Pro really stands for Decoder Programmer. It's a methodology that they developed with this computer interface that allows you to program your decoders. And by I mean program, I'm not saying that you're telling the decoder how to do its thing. What you're doing in Decoder Pro is changing what they call configuration variables.
Charlie, can you go to the full screen?
I can't.
Okay.
The reason I can't is because I want to keep the ability to run live on Decoder Pro, and I have to keep. If I go to full screen,
no problem.
There's no way for me to escape it. I'm going to go to Decoder Pro Live so that we can actually read decoders, read a decoder, and make changes to it, and see what goes on with that. So I'd like to keep it in this mode if that's possible. All right, so what it is that JMRI is a group of volunteers who've come up with a way to standardize the methodology of changing computer configuration variables inside decoders. Now, each decoder, the Digitrax decoders, the ESU decoders, the sound tracks, tsunamis, there are hundreds of decoder manufacturers, especially in Europe, that in each of these decoders has different options and different functions that they perform. This Decoder Pro is trying to be able to handle every kind of decoder, and it's going to give you screens that will allow you to choose your decoder and then go and start making adjustments to that decoder for various functions. What I mean by various functions, I'm talking about when the lights come on, what the color the lights are, which lights go on, how the motor actually functions, what speed it runs at, what to do with reverse and backwards, and all those kinds of functions are available for the various decoders by all the manufacturers, and it's all done through Decoder Pro. Now, let me see, I have to do new share. Every time I do this, I have to do a new share, right?
No, you do not. You're fine right now.
Actually, the better way to do it is share your desktop, not the application. And that way it'll be an easy transition. Why don't you stop sharing?
Here.
Okay, you've stopped sharing. So
Okay.
now click on share again. The bottom of your screen, click on share. Now share the upper left screen that's your desktop, the one where you see.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Click on share. Cool, thanks.
Okay, good. Now I can go. Now, in order to take these JMRI functions, JMRI is loaded into either one of three different kinds of computers. You can have it loaded into a standard PC, Windows kind of machine, or you can have an Apple, or else you can have a Linux. Now,
hey, Charles, you haven't hit the actual share button. We're still seeing you.
You don't want to see me. Okay, now we have to share this one. Do you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, so the JMRI runs on your computer. However, you've got to now get that computer to go to a programming track or the layout to do the various functions. And there are tools and there are devices that are available. Those devices are made by Digitrax, and it's called a PR3, a PR3 Extra, or a PR4, or the new DCS 210, or there's another 200 DCS that has this interface already built. NCE provides a USB interface. There's another company called Local Buffer that has a USB interface. Sprague 3 does it. And that's, but I want to talk about what I have here and what runs for me. I use a regular old-fashioned Digitrax PR3. So now let me go to the next. Now let's see, this should go now to the next. So you see the next screen, the software link? Okay. The trick is to download the Windows or to Apple computers, the JMRI. Now, the most difficult part of getting this download done is getting the proper USB driver to work with the different interface device that you have. Now, that's a tough call. And when you buy the device, you will get all sorts of software with it, or you will be directed to software to get that set up. I have a Windows machine. I have it attached to the USB port on COM3, and it talks to the layout and or it talks to my programming tab. And okay. So effectively what happens is that when you first get involved with Decoder Pro, you have a first time preference index, a preference setting that you have to do. This is where you're linking your computer to the hardware that's in the Digitrax setup. And I have to tell you, you need to do this. It's really specific to whose device you use. I'm a Digitrax kind of guy. There's a lot of Digitrax users down by me, and it's really easy to use. I've helped somebody who had NCE, and I set this Digitrax up on 4 other layouts and 4 other guys locally. So it's the toughest part is getting that done. And I want to show you what my setup is. All right, here. Here is the setup. This is where I am right now. You can see I have a programming track, and there are 2 tracks there. One is HO, and the other track is ON3. I'm an ON3 modeler, but I also do a lot of HO work. You can see the Digitrax PR3 is the white box that's just based below the 2 tracks. And then there's if you notice, there's a black box that wires are running into. And that black box has what they call a program booster. For some of the sound decoders like the Tsunamis and the TCSs, they really program more easily if you get a little more voltage to the tracks. So I have put in a programming booster. That programming booster is in that black box. So it's nothing, so the circuit isn't exposed. I'll talk about that another time, because I have some dial there that allows me to put different functions onto a track. I can actually make that track live with the layout, or I can disconnect the programming booster. The computer is sitting immediately in front of that. All right, and then you could see that that's how that thing works. When you first sign on and you have all of this working, when you sign on to Decoder Pro and you click on it, you will see that screen. Okay, and now at this point, I'm going to drop out of the PowerPoint. and I'm going to go live. This is live, the live screen from Decoder Pro. I have a diesel on the track, all right, and that diesel it will actually function. So I'm going to, now what happens, if you notice, I have a roster here. This is a roster of all the trains that I have decoders in. You see this? Now, if my decoder loses any, if one of my decoders loses a function or has to be replaced, I have all the information about that particular decoder and that locomotive on that roster. Now, if I'm wanting to, if I'm wanting to work on the locomotive, all I have to do is, let me see, this is the Plymouth number 120. So I'm going to dial up this Plymouth 120, and it's going to sit there. Okay. And now it shows the screen of each of the different panels. The first panel is a roster entry. It's a Plymouth number 120. It's an old Pacific Coast Railway. Its road number is 51. It's a car. The manufacturer is CarWorks. I'm the owner. It has a Digitrax SDH166D S series decoder. That means that is one of the cheapest decoders you can buy. It's a sound decoder from Digitrax, and it kind of, you get it at bargain prices somewhere around the $42 range. So this is a roster entry, and I'm going to now go into the first of the screens. This is the first screen, is the basic screen, and that has the addresses. Now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read this full screen, and what it's going to do, the system is actually going to physically read what's in on that diesel, and hopefully it's reading it. Come on. Oh, there it goes. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture on the screen of the diesel as it's going through its reading, but you can see that the screen is changing. Now, if I wanted to change that address back to 3, all I would have to do is put in a 3, just here, like so. And all I would do is say write changes. And okay, now that locomotive has an address of 3. Oh, I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to change the address back to 120. Now, this is a bad example. You know why this is a bad example? Because you see, it says short addresses, 120. You know, it says it's a short byte. Normally, a short address is 2 digits. However, because 1 byte can have up to a value of 128, even though a 120 is a 3-digit address, it's a valid short digit address. There's another diesel I have that has higher numbers, but that one I don't want to confuse anybody by this. But I better write the changes here. Okay, so yeah, so that locomotive is now changed back to 120. Now here's motor. Here's a motor panel. This motor panel is we set up an acceleration and deceleration rate. When we want, it has its own momentum built in. And so if I change the acceleration rate down to 0, it runs like as if you have a regular power pack. You just turn it up and it goes. With an acceleration rate of 10 and a deceleration rate of 10, when you turn the power on, it takes a couple of seconds for it to start going and accelerating. Then there's an option called kickstart. Because this is a rather big diesel compared to a little tiny HO diesel. I have a the kickstart at 2, so the motor gets a little extra voltage to start. All right, but the rest of these, we don't want to I don't know all what they are, and I don't fool with them. Now the next thing is that they have speed control. Now we can either do speed control where we have starting voltage, middle voltage here like this, or maximum voltage like this. And that's where it, as you accelerate or decelerate through your power, through your throttle, it follows that pattern in a very straight line. If you don't want to use that, they have what they call a speed table. And here is a speed table. Now, this is the standard speed table, but if I want it to be, I don't want to have a little switch diesel that has, that can go 100 miles an hour. So what I want to do is I want to have a speed table where the maximum speed is only half of what the full throttle is. Now I can change the aspect of that and make that curve look like that, or I can make the curve look like this. And that would be how this diesel accelerates and decelerates. There's another panel called functions. Now here's a function. Function 0 is normally if you put your headlight on. So, and that's the white wire of the decoder. So when you mark this off and you say, well, you want to use function 0, that means your function is going to put power to the white wire. When you want to do reverse means you're sending power to the yellow wire. So if your headlight would always be powered with the white wire, and the tail, the backup light would always be the yellow. Now, you have another wire for function 1. Function 1 is green, and that's the green wire coming out of the decoder. Now, function 1 on this decoder generally is the bell, but you could, for the bell, you could also have a flicker light, a dome light that flashes. The same thing you could have for every time you blow the horn, you could have ditch lights that get power. So then you would check those things off. So now if you look here, you go to the light screen. The light screen shows you what kind of light it is. Now, for me, I have LEDs in the lamp configuration, all right? So on a headlight, I have it as a normal headlight. For the reverse light, it's a normal normal headlight. But remember I said on function 1, you could have a dome light that flashes. Well, there you could have the option of putting in a flashing dome light, random flicker, Mars light, flashing light. You can do all sorts of little funky things with the lights. So those functions are really live functions. I don't fool with those right now. So we can move on to sound. Now, it says steam, but it isn't steam. There's another CV in there that allows you to say it's a steam engine. And the horn that I use is the horn from an RS1. Then you have the level of the sound. Here I have the master level all the way up. I don't have a great speaker in this one, so I have the master level pretty up. The volume when muted is that when you mute the volume, you don't want to hear it. So I have it down pretty low. The prime mover sound, the bell volume, I have the bells annoy me when I play, when I do switching in a yard. So I have the bell volume down to the mid level. The horn I like to have nice and loud. Here you have this whole panel that allows you to adjust the level of the sound. Now, this is an important one. here are the actual CVs that you can work your way through. You can see all of the CVs that are on this particular decoder. And you can go and read them and change them. So that's that, but that, I don't want to get too deeply involved into any of these other issues here, other than the things that I've touched, because basically, if you've ever watched the DCC guy, and he says, well, there's really only eight configuration variables you really want to fool with. Well, this allows you to get to those 8, but it allows you to do a lot of other things. Now, this was a very inexpensive standard Digitrax decoder. I am now going to put on, let me get out of this particular, let me get out of this engine. Okay, good. Close. All right. Now I'm going to put another engine up. This engine has a Tsunami decoder in it. It is an Alco S1 switcher. And it belongs to the Lehigh, New England. Well, you know what? Let me do this first. If you have a new decoder that you've installed on a new engine, you could always hit this new locomotive button, and then you see all these decoders companies. These are all various decoder companies, right? And now I can read what kind of decoder is on here by saying, read the decoder pipe from the decoder. And so it's now in going through the process of looking at that decoder, reading it, and determining what the address is and the other various and sundry pieces of information about that decoder. Remember, the Digitrax decoder had a certain set of panels. Now, this one is, you can see here, these lit up items. This is a, here we go, hold on. Tsunami. Look, there's a lot of tsunamis. I have to choose which one it is. Oh. 244. It happens to be an Alco 244. And it registered this locomotive. It registered as an Alco 244. So you can actually start a whole roster from here. So I'm going to go, let's go back to the other roster, and I'll bring up this diesel. So I can see all of the different functions that's there. Okay, it's a Lehigh, New England, 611. So if we go back to, they go down to basic, all right. So now it's a long address. It's 600, it's diesel 611, all right. And let's go see. Now when we go to the next set of panels, things will start to look different. You notice there was no kickstart. Well, there's no kickstart on Tsunami decoders. Now take a look at speed control. Speed control looks a little different. So they had three different settings for start, mid, and high voltage. Not so on a Tsunami. Okay. However, the speed table is still there. There's the speed table. I like this speed table. Now look at the function map. Look how different the function map is. The function map is totally different than the Digitrax. There's a little bit more. There are more functions that are available in that decoder. So they have function. They have FX5 and 6. They have all these different live functions, and how you attach you attach these functions to the throttle functions, to the wires that run inside the decoder. So you can, so if you have your headlight on, you could also have your air horn on. If I would click this air horn like this, if I had my headlight on, that air horn would be blasting. Okay. So each decoder has its own set of rules. Now let's go to sound.
Hey, Charles, we have a question on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
Will the NCE USB interface to a Decoder Pro work if you only have the NCE power cab? No main system or booster?
Well, isn't the NCE power cab a main system?
I'm not too familiar with NCE, but
Yeah, well,
I want to lean towards yes, but
yeah, I think it does. The NCE system that I have, the fella has a big NCE system, and he does use the NCE USB connection with the big main system.
Clark in the Zoom chat said yes as an NCE user.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. And I don't know if NCE, the NCE USB port connection will work on an Apple. Okay, I know my friend has my NCE friend has a does just a regular Windows machine. Oh, anyhow, so getting to sounds. There's a whole different panel for sounds, and let's go to sound levels. For Tsunami, look again, a whole different set of sounds. Now, if I were to put a Tsunami 2 up here, you would see even many more of these configuration variables. So when you look at every one of these situations, okay, you know, what's interesting, I can't, this bar up on top is blocking, well, here, I can get out of this. Okay, we know that. Close. Now, if I look here, let's see, here is this decoder, you see this decoder here on Lehigh, New England 701? This is an ATL 100 LCT-KT. This is a previously old Soundtrax decoder. I mean, this decoder is about 25 years old, and it has all of the functions. Again, if you look at motor, his motor, that looks again like the, but here's the sound. Look at the sound. This sound is very simple. I mean, this is 25 years ago. Sound levels is easier to see. All right. And it's a Soundtrax decoder, much smaller, much simpler, much older. And it doesn't have anywhere near the functionality. Okay. Now let's go see if I can find a, oh, this, yeah, notice there's a Loc sound in here. I have a Loc sound engine. Oh, here's a wow sound. No, I don't have the engine. Well, but I have the, we can look it up. Okay. Now, if you look, here's a wow sound. Yeah, you can play with the wow sounds too. Again, now the wow sound has BEMF enabled, disabled, motor buttons, all sorts of functionality. The motor control, again, here it's like the Digitrax. The function, I bet you the functions are going to be all there. The functions look like this. The lights look like, look at the lights. Okay. So the sound, let's see the sound functions. Okay. Here, I mean, they have what they call these indexed CVs, which are very complex, but you could see where they are, how they're set. Look at all the options for whistles. Amazing! It's amazing, and you have chuff rates that you can decide. Look at the chuff rates. So what happens is that each one of these panels that were developed by JMRI is really based specifically on the different decoders that the different manufacturers make, and all the different panels to give you the full functionality of those decoders. So it's very easy, because I've been doing a bunch of decoder installs, and so if somebody gives me a 166 decoder, I know it's how to put it in, or a 123 decoder in, or a TCS. I use this all the time to program it. I don't have to look at the manuals, because it keeps everything in one place. Now, the good part about this is that once you've established each of your locomotives, now I have a bunch of Rio Grande C16s and C19s, and they're using TSU 1000s. All right. I actually have a bunch of Mikados. You see 473, 476, 478, 483, 486, 497. All of these they can be all programmed at once. And if I lose one of these decoders, I don't have to worry about how I set the brakes and how I did this and how I did this. I can always download what these decoder settings are in my roster. So that's where I am with this, and I hope I didn't make it too complicated. So that's the story. Any questions?
Charles, before somebody asks, let me make sure I understand, because if I know the decoder I've got, I can go to this Decoder Pro,
Right.
and all I need to do is go to the different tables, pick whatever sound I want, whatever show rate, whatever I want.
Yeah.
What's in that table, click on that.
Yeah.
And I'm in business.
Yeah, it is. And you don't have to go, it's not even, you don't have to know which particular version of the decoder you have on. Is that you have to know your decoder is properly installed. So then you can sit the model on the track and then hit new loco button, and it'll read that decoder, and then it'll build the tables that decoder has.
And so then all I do is go to the tables that it produces, yes, and click whatever I want.
That clicks whatever function you want. Yeah. Now, there's also another thing, and I will just bear with me for a moment, and I'll be right there. There's a device called an ESU decoder tester, and they're not the only ones who make it. It looks like this. Can you see it?
And a little higher. Little higher. There you go.
Okay, you see that?
Yeah.
And now this device, you take a decoder and you screw it into the particular terminals, or there's a plug-in. Right here, there's a plug-in. There is a a plug-in here for a 21 pin plug-in, and
Yeah.
then or the wires are in here, and then you attach these two that say track. You see where it says track?
Yeah.
Okay, you attach those with clips
Yeah. Okay.
to your programming track. So now, before you even install your decoder, you can test it.
Ah, I got you. Okay.
And you put that in there, and then it has a motor. See, it has a motor.
Yeah.
Okay, and it has a speaker, so you can test the sound. You put a throttle to it, and you can do all of those things and read the decoder and write to the decoder. And I always do that because I always want to make sure that I'm working with a decoder that I haven't gone through the install yet, and I would like to make sure that it works and I didn't have any problems with it from the initial, unwrapping.
Yeah.
And this way you don't blow up the decoder, because if you put it into a train, you may cause a short. You may do something to it. You could blow up a decoder. With this, you're not blowing up a decoder. And this
Is that an expensive tool?
No, that's I think $35.
Oh, okay.
It's ESU makes it. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
It's a very absolutely useful tool.
Hey, Charles, Fran F. that asked over on YouTube that asked the last question says this is the clearest explanation of a Decoder Pro that they have ever seen. Thank you.
I really appreciated it. I did not want to do Decoder Pro through a PowerPoint presentation. I wanted to do it live, okay, because it really helps to see it. The only thing that I didn't have a camera on the diesel, so you could see the diesels going and flipping back and forth.
Charles, what other parts of JMRI do you use?
Well, the only other thing I use the operations, which is what I did the last time.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is the switch lists and manifests. I really enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I did try to use to build a CTC panel with the layout.
Yeah.
I got to that, but I'm so busy working on models and doing decoder installs for people, and right now it's I don't have the bandwidth to go through reading the JMRI manuals because I tried to do the layout of the track plan, and I actually got the switches in place, and I could actually drive my switches from the computer, so I could sit there and click, and the switches will work off the computer.
Yeah.
I got that to work fine. The problem I had was actually doing the layout of the computer screen to match the layout of and to position the switches and all of the tangents that brought the switches together to come in to do a good control panel. But that's something to do.
Charles, are you using this new stuff the NMRA is talking about, this LCC stuff?
No, I'm not using that stuff.
Okay.
No. What I have done, well, I know what LCC, what they're trying to do is that what happens is that there are so many stationary decoders that are out there. When I mean stationary decoders, I'm talking about people are putting lights in buildings, and they're powering their accessories, and they're powering their accessories using addresses on those accessories. So that limits the amount of locomotives you can run.
Right.
And it kind of jams up. You get a traffic jam on the signals going out to the track. So the NMRA decided that for stationary stuff, we want you to pull out and separate the track voltage signals with the signals that are for stationary devices and accessories. and that's what they've done. But you know, it's I've gone to a couple of clinics at the local MER of the the regional clinics, and I saw it and I said, I'm not ready for that yet. I guess I'm too old.
Yeah, I got you.
So I didn't I really haven't embraced it. I have done my own homework on it, in that I've run what they call accessory buses on the layout,
Yeah.
where I have 16-volt AC, and because I'm using AC, all right, because the layout is 35 feet long, all right,
Right.
and I have a lot of buildings, and I have the turntables, I have switch machines, I've got all sorts of things running off of them. Okay, so I like to have running down the accessory buses 16 volts AC, and so as I need to get and grab electricity for various and sundry things, I'll put in a bridge rectifier. I'll put in, if it's lit with LEDs, I'll throw a bunch of resistors in place, or I'll use one ballast light and then have a little circuit that says, just grab grab 1.5 volts or 3 volts for the LEDs. The same, and for the switch machines, rather than taking them from track power, my DS64s are powered through this layout, what I call the accessory bus, but it's 16 volts and they only like 12 volts. So I have a little bridge rectifier that comes in and then sends 12 volts into the accessory decoder. So
Right.
there's all sorts of stuff that you can do. And so that's my kind of a nod to LCC, but without all of the really fancy circuits that they have.
Well, Charles, I can't thank you enough for being here tonight and coming back. I so enjoyed your operation of your model railroad and seeing it and hearing you talk about the switch list and all. And this, I think I might even understand Decoder Pro, and that's a real accomplishment for anybody.
Yeah, well, do you have a DCC on your on your little layout?
I have a World War II rheostat in a little blue box I bought, and an off-on switch and a diode connected to it. So, and I use one in each hand to run 2 trolleys at a time with my overhead wire. If that answers your question about my sophistication.
Well, I have to tell you, just a little quick story. My my next door neighbor wanted me to build a layout for his grandkids, and he came over, and he thought it was fascinating because he said, I had trains when I was a kid. He said, so let me get these so let me see if these trains will work. So he gives me a whole bunch of trains with the old Atlas power packs, and he had some decent diesels. He had a couple of Atlas and a couple Atherns. So we so he started building the layout, and I helped him, and we put it up, and again, with the Atlas power packs and all that. But then he came over to run my trains, see, and he says, "Oh, you got whistles and bells, and you can run 2 trains at the same time." He said, "I'd like to get into this DCC," and yeah, he did. We put a DCC system in, and we upgraded. He started out with what they called a little starter DCC system from Digitrax, and he now has one of the later, more powerful units.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very interesting, and you shouldn't be afraid of it, because it gives you. I converted over about, I guess, 8 to 10 years ago, and I don't know how I played with trains before that.
We don't play with trains. We
Yes, I do.
We run the railroad.
Yeah, yes, we do. And I have my switch lists are right up there behind me, and I have yet the oil extra is about is halfway between 2 towns, and I got to finish the run, or otherwise we don't. The refinery has nothing to do.
Charles, you want to come back on my show anytime, just let me know, and you're welcome. I can't wait for you to come back again. Thank you so
Thanks a
very
lot, guys. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Charles, we
Yes,
have
sir.
one question from the Zoom chat. Will the Decoder Pro display on read if the locomotive has a dual decoder setup, one for high power and one for sound?
No, I don't know how they do that, because there was an article in Railroad Model Craftsman about 10 years ago where the guys were putting in two different kinds of decoders. And what you should be doing, all right, is you should be having, you should have a switch where the power doesn't go to one of the decoders so you can read it. Because, you know, if you put if you have a Digitrax motor decoder and a Soundtrax sound decoder, they're in conflict. They're in conflict with each other. So yes, that would be difficult to read. You know, I could test it because all I have to do is put an ON3 engine and an HO engine on top, you know, and I could read two engines at the same time, and it would tell me. But I think it would get very confused.
All right, thank you.
Thanks again, Charles.
You're welcome.